I think one of the saddest things for young people is when they put their faith or swear their allegiance to a leader, usually an adult, often, a sports figure, a politician, a religious figure, what have you. They look upward and outward to people that they designate as being a guru or somebody that they can trust and believe in, especially politicians. I mean, we all did it, not all, but a lot of people did it with John Kennedy. A lot of people did it with FDR. A lot of people did it with Nixon, and a lot of people do it right now with Trump. But then you have this organization, Turning Point USA, which is a Trump-loving organization for MAGA young people, college students or just young people who are not students. And Turning Point is having one of the worst weeks yet in terms of public relations. Now remember what Turning Point USA, what their target is, young people. This is the organization, by the way, that's made a habit of constantly backing political candidates who lose. And the leader of Turning Point, forget his name offhand, he goes on these rants against Dr. King. So all of this, and he's done that recently, but all of this taken together is a sure sign that things have truly gone off the rails with this fucked up organization. And according to what I have here, last week, Arizona State Representative Austin Smith, he's a Christian fascist and a senior director at Turning Point's nonprofit arm, the one they use to collect money. It's called Turning Point Action. Anyway, he suspended his reelection campaign after charges of election fraud. Right. He is accused, he's a state representative, but he's accused of forging signatures in order to qualify himself for reelection. That's a charge that when he announced the end of his campaign, he said, the charges are silly. Really? Now, it's like an act of karmic justice because he has shamelessly peddled this right-wing conspiracy bullshit that Maricopa County officials had fraudulently altered ballot signatures to the detriment of the Christian fascist candidates in that state, up to and including the Orange Antichrist. So he's been active in the movement to say, oh, look, they forged signatures, they altered signatures, when this hypocritical prick, and this is so typical of these Christian fascists, they're scum. They come out of hell, not out of the Bible. But this is what he's accused of doing, and he has done it. I mean, there's okay, he's innocent until proven guilty. Fuck that. To your humble and obedient servant here, he is as guilty as the day is long. So these election fraud allegations, of course, faced by Turning Point, don't end there. Here's an example. Less than a week after this dumb bastard decided to resign, two men with very deep ties to Turning Point are among those 11 fake electors who were indicted in Arizona over their role in the Trump campaign's fake elector scheme, right? Huh? You remember we talked about it last week. 18 of them indicted, including one who is an unindicted co-conspirator, the Orange Antichrist. Anyway, that whole idea was the bullshit plot after the 2020 election that involved Christian fascists in states that Joe Biden won, putting together these so-called alternate slates of electors to go to Congress on the bullshit lie and attempt to overthrow the government on the premise that Trump really had won. But, George Soros and this one and that one and Joe Biden and all the hippies had tried to steal the election from the Antichrist. Well, one of those accused now is a guy named Tyler Bowyer. He's a Turning Point higher up who has pissed off conservatives online with his chest beating. You know, he's, oh, look at me. He's the chief operating officer for Turning Point Action, the one that scams money out of people. And he's a committee man for the Republican National Committee as well. Now, he tried and failed to pass a resolution earlier this year that would have forced the RNC to pay the legal bills of these fake electors who tried to overthrow the fucking government. This is how these unconscionable pricks, how they have taken the message of the rabbi from Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth, and they've turned it into something foul and filthy and dirty and criminal, because that's what they are. Now, the founder, his name has escaped me for a minute, it's Charlie Kirk, this son of a bitch. Now, Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point, he hasn't addressed the charges yet against members of his organization on social media. But he is claiming, oh, here's a unique thing. He's claiming that all the indictments are nothing more than a political hit job. Of course. By George Soros, right, Charlie, you little bastard? And on social media platform X, Mr. Charlie Kirk said that Bowyer, Tyler Bowyer, the higher up, and others involved in the fake elector scheme were just doing things liberals have done in the past, of course. Now, if you think you've heard that before, that's because it's a talking point by these Christian devils. And it's bullshit. They have never, oh, they talk about it, but they have never presented any evidence whatsoever anywhere in the United States to back this shit up. But you see, that's the theory of the big lie as laid out by one of their spiritual leaders, Adolf Hitler. And that is, if you're going to use the big lie, make it enormous, like the election was stolen in this case, and repeat it over and over and over. Never stop repeating it. Because repetition drives it into the unthinking parts of the brain, and it rests in there until it can be called up by somebody like Charlie Kirk, especially among young people. But it is... Anyway, what Charlie Kirk is saying, it's a, Democrat plot. That goes a little bit further than the defense is being put up now by these Christian fascists in Arizona. They say that the charges, quote, represent a blatant and unprecedented abuse of prosecutory power, sound familiar, and are clearly designed to silence dissent and weaponize the law against political opponents, end quote. This is what I mean about repeating the big lie. All of this stuff that you hear from these Christian devils first erupted out of the filthy mouth of Donald Trump. He came up with all of this shit. And knowing full well that repetition and more repetition is necessary, the orange bastard instructed anyone who was associated with him to continue constantly, promote the lie, keep saying it over and over and over again. One of the rules in advertising to sell a product on television using TV commercials, this goes all the way back to, I think, the 60s or the 70s when I read this book by Jerry Delafemina, who was an ad agency executive for years in the 50s and 60s. But in his book, he said that the key words to getting people to accept a product, and this applies to getting people to accept a concept or an idea also, is repetition and irritation. Now that sounds counterintuitive, but repetition and irritation. How many commercials can you remember that just drove you crazy? But when you walked into a grocery store or a supermarket and you were looking for something in the category of the thing that was driving you crazy on the TV commercial, you looked for it. Yeah, I've done that. Repetition and irritation. So what the Trump organization, these maggot filthy bastards, what they are doing is the repetition and the irritation. I mean, every time you see Trump giving a speech, a rally in front of his Nuremberg-style masses of screaming people, it's very irritating. It's got to be irritating to the people there, but they absorb it. Repetition and irritation over and over and over again. Now, the second turning point charged by the Democratic Attorney General in Arizona, Chris Mays, is State Senator Jake Hoffman. He's another Turning Point USA affiliate and contractor known for leading disinformation campaigns in the past. And this jackoff is a member of the Freedom Caucus, a neo-Nazi group in Arizona. Arizona's Freedom Caucus. A lot of states have them. They're about as much in favor of freedom as Putin is. It's just Nazi shit. And on social media, this guy, Jake Hoffman, said he is, quote, innocent of any crime, that the investigation by the Democratic Attorney General in that state is an example of political persecution. They all scream for the same thing, don't they? Well, they are involved in political persecution, gender persecution, any kind of persecution that their fucked up Christianity can lead them to persecute, they'll do it. And they don't stop. Repetition and irritation.
Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.